group of businessmen from the Middle East and North Africa have been on a mission to try to bring peace to the volatile region. Now, most prefer to remain anonymous, but CGTN's Yasser Hakim met with one of its members and filed this report.
The Palestinian-Israeli issue is seen as the main conflict in the region. For decades, the international community was unable to bring peace and create a two-state solution as per UN resolutions.
We have been living this crisis for the last almost 70 years. It's very difficult to predict what will happen. First of all, we pray that a settlement takes place, but I'm sure that conditions will get extremely better all over the area.
A group of 22 businessmen from the Middle East and North Africa are providing a non-governmental approach to end this dispute.
It's not just the governments, and it's not just the political process, but there's also track 2 that has been very influential in the past, but and is now even more encouraged with the acceptance of some of the Israelis and some of the Palestinians and some of the Arabs in pursuing a full-fledged regional peace initiative, in a sense, or peace plan. But most importantly, on track 2, we always want to calculate what the real economic benefits of it for the private sector, for the youth, for growth.
Primary studies estimate $1 trillion worth of economic growth in the region in 5 to 10 years once a peace deal is signed. And the group has been engaging with regional players as well as international mediators such as US President Donald Trump. But the Track 2 team is also reaching out to emerging powers like China.
We would be calling out, especially on the economic part rather than the political part, especially on the Track 2 part rather than the political process, on countries such as China that are having a tremendous amount of investments being put in, whether the BRICS countries or whether under the Silk Road Initiative, where they can play a very big role.
With decades of sufferings in the Middle East, businessmen are trying to take matters into their own hands. Maybe they can achieve what politicians have failed to do: bring peace to their nations. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Well, let's find out more about this group of businessmen. One of them, Ashraf Naguib, now joins us from our Cairo studios. Mr. Naguib, of course, is the Secretary General of the Asia-Egypt Business Association and, of course, the CEO of Global Trade Matters. Welcome to the studio, sir. Now, your group, which, of course, is made up of several businessmen, it basically lobbies to improve economic growth in the region through peace. So you just met in Jordan. Tell us, what was the outcome of that meeting?
Thank you for having me, and it's such a pleasure to talk about something as the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in the context of actually having a open dialogue between people in trying to find a resolution to this. Now, the main principle behind this group is to take the fundamental context of the Arab Peace Initiative that has been endorsed by about 58 Arab nations, and try to see how we can do it, rather than ask ourselves or call it an impossibility. Instead, we're asking ourselves, if this was implementable, how can we quantify it? How can we make sure that there is a mutual benefit between not just the Israelis and the Palestinians, but also for the rest of the region? But our main purpose here is to foster that cooperation between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, so we can create an overall regional peace. The President of Egypt was very adamant at the United Nations, addressing both the people of Israel and the people of Palestine, not just their leadership. And I think that's why Track 2 is now going to become extremely important, because while the diplomacy has been stagnant and will take a much longer time, I believe that interactivity, that interconnection between people that have the same goal and the same aim, and that is just for us to create peace for posterity, not for land, not for economics, and not for anything else.
And that leads to my next question, Mr. Naguib. How exactly do you plan to solve some of these very complex issues in the region that even politicians there have not been able to solve?
Well, the politicians are the decision makers, but groups such as ourselves, we're the decision influencers, and that's the, let's say, the advantage that we have, that one, that we agree that the Arab Peace Initiative is the way forward, is two-state solution is the way forward, that economic incentives have to go beyond just being economic incentives, but true economic cooperation within the region itself. So what we started to do was to quantify, to put together the numbers of how Israel can fare better within a climate of peace within the region. Just looking at the markets that it cannot access today, imagine if there is peace. And again, I'm talking about 58 countries that have subscribed to the Arab Peace Initiative. So our main objective here is really put an economic incentive for the whole region as a total regional package and work on it on a private sector approach. See what the framework that we have right now is, work within the framework, and that's why a lot of responsibility falls on the shoulders of Egypt and Jordan, as well as we have already initiated what is considered to be peace. We need more cooperation or enhancement of cooperation with the partners, with Israel at this point, and for us to be able to initiate or emulate the experience that Egypt and Jordan had in peace with Israel with the Arab countries once the Arab Peace Initiative is accepted by Israel.
Now, you did conduct a study on the economic benefits for the Middle East if we see the Palestinian-Israeli conflict resolved. Now, what did you find? What were your findings?
Well, to just give you a couple of important points, we calculated about growth within the Middle East area within the next 6 to 10 years to reach about $1 trillion if we are looking at full-fledged peace between Israel and Palestine. In the meantime, we've also done the calculations to show the Israelis what kind of incentives they will get out of this. And we're looking about a 19 to 24% growth in trade with the Arab world within the next 4 to 5 years from the initiation of peace. And at the same time, you are looking at a growth of about $46 billion worth of an increase in their GDP, so on an annual basis. So a lot of these calculations are done for each of the individual countries, but the main perspective of this economic plan and the analysis that we're conducting is for us to really put together a private sector aspect of it, not just in terms of investment of large corporations and large financial institutions, but really get to have smaller businesses work together, invest together under the framework that we already have existing.
Well, many thanks for those insights. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Mr. Naguib. Of course, that was Ashraf Naguib. He's the CEO of Global Trade Matters. Now,